You think you're traveling for photos, for sunsets, for food, for getting away. But your brain doesn't care about your Instagram story. It's doing something else entirely. Something slower, quieter, and a lot more irreversible. Because every time you step into a new country, your brain doesn't just experience it. It starts rewriting you. Not dramatically, not in a movie-style transformation. No dramatic music. No sudden enlightenment. More like a background update you never agreed to. And the funny part is you don't even notice it happening. At first, everything feels simple. You arrive somewhere new, and your brain goes into what scientists would basically call confused toddler mode. New language, new signs, new smells, new rules like why does this door open differently, or why is coffee this strong and emotionally aggressive here? Your brain panics a little. Not loudly, more like a quiet internal notification. Unknown environment detected. Increase alertness. Reduce assumptions. That's it. And suddenly, you're more present than you've been in months. Not because you're trying to be mindful, but because your brain has no choice. It can't rely on autopilot anymore. Autopilot only works in familiar environments. Your home, your commute, your local grocery store where you could locate pasta with your eyes closed and your soul half asleep. But travel removes that. It pulls the plug on routine recognition. And what replaces it is something interesting. Neuroplasticity. Your brain's ability to rewire itself based on new input. Sounds scientific and boring, but in reality, it's kind of like your personality getting a quiet software update while you're busy figuring out how to buy toothpaste in another language. And here's where it gets funny. Because while your brain is busy rewiring itself into a slightly different version of you, you're still acting like you. Same habits, same thoughts, same internal dialogue. Except now it's happening in a completely unfamiliar environment. So you become a weird hybrid. A person trying to maintain identity while constantly being reminded that nothing around them agrees with it. Even simple things become comedy. Like standing in a supermarket abroad, staring at products like they're ancient artifacts. You pick something up. You have no idea what it is. But you pretend you do. Because somewhere deep inside, you believe confidence translates across languages. It doesn't. You just confidently bought sparkling vinegar instead of water. Congratulations. Your brain is now slightly more flexible. But the real change isn't happening in those obvious moments. It's happening in the background. Every new place forces your brain to build new maps. Not physical maps, but mental ones. Where is safe? What is normal? How people behave? What polite looks like? What rude means here? And each time you adjust, your brain expands its tolerance for uncertainty. That's the real upgrade. Not happiness, not enlightenment, tolerance for not knowing. Because at home, your brain loves certainty. It labels everything. This is how things are. This is how people behave. This is how life works. But travel breaks those labels. Not aggressively, gently, like, oh, actually people do it differently here. And every time that happens, something in your brain softens. The rigid edges loosen, and you become slightly harder to stress out later in life. But let's be honest, nobody notices that in the moment. In the moment, you're just tired, hungry, and slightly embarrassed because you just tried to greet someone in the wrong language and accidentally said something that probably means I am a confused potato. But your brain remembers. It stores that experience as survived uncertainty. No death occurred. Update accepted. And it builds from there. Now here's the part nobody tells you. Travel doesn't just expand your world. It temporarily deletes your identity stability. Because when you remove familiar environments, you also remove the cues your brain uses to define who you are. At home, you are the person who always orders the same coffee, who walks the same routes, who behaves in predictable patterns. But abroad, none of those cues exist. So your identity becomes flexible. Not in a dramatic, I found myself way. More like, wait, I can also be this version of me. You become more experimental without trying. You speak differently. You move differently. You take small risks you would never take at home. Like sitting alone in a cafe for hours just observing life. Or talking to strangers just because no one knows your usual personality file. And this is where the brain starts doing something fascinating. It starts recording alternative versions of you. Not as fantasy, as possibility. And once the brain sees a possible version of you, it never fully deletes it. Which means every trip you take adds new options to your identity system. You return home thinking you're the same person. But you're not. You're just a slightly expanded version running on the same operating system. And here's the ironic part. Most people think travel is about escape. But neurologically, it's actually about integration. Your brain is not escaping your life. It's collecting new inputs to rebuild it. That's why after traveling, even small things feel different. Your usual city might feel a little slower. Your routines might feel a little tighter. Your problems might feel a little smaller or bigger depending on perspective shift. Not because reality changed, because your brain did. And it's still recalibrating. Even sleep changes. Even taste changes. Even the way you perceive time shifts. Because your brain is no longer running on one stable context. It's trying to reconcile multiple environments into a single identity. And that creates a subtle internal tension. Who am I when I'm not in one fixed place? Most people ignore this question. But travel quietly forces it into the system. Again and again. Not in words. In sensation. In disorientation. In small moments of this doesn't feel like my life, but it is. And then something even stranger happens. After enough travel experiences, your brain stops treating unfamiliarity as danger. It starts treating it as normal. That's a massive shift. Because a brain that is comfortable with unfamiliar environments is a brain that is harder to control through fear. It becomes more adaptive, more open, more curious. Not because you read self-help books, but because you got lost in 5 different cities and survived every time. Now let's be honest. Nobody frames it like this while they're traveling. While you're there, you're just thinking, why is everything expensive? Where is my charger? Did I just miss the train again? Why does this map hate me personally? But later, your brain connects the dots. It realizes you handled uncertainty repeatedly, and you're still fine. And that becomes a baseline upgrade in confidence. Not loud confidence, quiet confidence, the kind that doesn't need to prove anything, because it already survived not knowing. And that's the real secret. Travel doesn't just show you the world. It gently breaks your dependence on predictability and replaces it with adaptability. And maybe that's why people come back a little different. Not changed, just a less rigid, more flexible in thought, slightly harder to shock, slightly more curious about difference instead of defensive. And the funniest part, most of this happens while you're just trying to find Wi-Fi and not embarrass yourself in public. Your brain is doing neuroscience-level rewiring, and you're just wondering if the hotel breakfast is included. So next time you travel, don't think of it as a break. Think of it as a quiet negotiation between you and your own brain. One where you don't realize you're being updated until you come home and notice something subtle. The world didn't get bigger. You did.